It is September 20th, 2022. This is the Wrestling Inc. podcast, NXT 2.0. Glenn Rubenstein, Alfred Konuwa. Issa is off tonight. We hope she's doing well in Puerto Rico with the storms there and whatnot. But we are here to talk about a pre-taped NXT 2.0, the last of the In Living Color era, as there's a set change going on. And next week, it is an all-new, all-different NXT 2.5, NXT Special Edition. Who knows? But you got the two of us tonight. Alfred, what's going on in the news?
Well, it's all about Bray Wyatt, Glenn. This has been dominating the headlines. WWE is going full guerrilla marketing, and it is working like a charm. WWE has been conspicuously playing Jefferson Airplane, a terribly underrated band. I'm glad they're getting so much pub. Terribly underrated Jefferson Airplane's White Rabbit throughout all kinds of arenas. They're making it the a cappella version. And this past Monday on Raw in the SAP Center, if you saw online, when they played White Rabbit, the lights went red. And there's a lot of speculation that now this has something to do with Bray Wyatt. And this past Monday on Raw, I feel like was one of those episodes where they all but told you it was Bray Wyatt, to where there was a QR code in the background of an Austin Theory segment. If you scan the QR, it took you to a link where it read, "Feed your head." And then it shows this little animation of a hanged man where you're supposed to guess, but it does it all for you. And the clue is who killed the world? And the answer is you did. And the first 5 letters of this guest spelled the letters D-E-M-O-N. So NYC Demon Diva isn't here. I'm not saying it is Issa, but I'm not saying it's not. Okay, that is one thing to consider. She hasn't been here, and they're now doing all these teases. Okay. And then afterwards, it said 9/23. So 9/23 as in September 23rd, or 9:23 p.m., which is Eastern time zone. That is around the time in the time zone that SmackDown airs from 8 to 10 on the East Coast. So it looks like there is to be, whether it's the next development, whether it's an announcement, something is going down on September 23rd. A lot of people think it's Bray Wyatt, and further fueling these flames, it doesn't end there, Glenn. If you look at the Extreme Rules posters, particularly for Seth Rollins versus Matt Riddle, in the background, you'll see a lantern. This does not appear in any other posters. They have the Ronda Rousey, Liv Morgan poster up there, and that's not in the background, but it is in the background of this. So perhaps Bray Wyatt makes his return in the fight pit. It looks like this is Bray Wyatt. Some people have said that it might be Karrion Kross because he went by White Rabbit and when he was in Lucha Underground. Let me tell you something right now. You want to ruin Karrion Kross's career again? Let it be Karrion Kross. Like, if it's Karrion Kross and not Bray Wyatt after all this excitement and them basically telling us it is, that will ruin his career worse than Vince did. And he'll need that helmet just to hide his face from the backlash. So it looks like Bray Wyatt might be on his way back. They're doing a lot of really creative guerrilla marketing. Glenn, what do you think about all this? And do you think it'll be Bray Wyatt or somebody else?
Oh, wait. Is Bray Wyatt going to be on the podcast? Apparently, White Rabbit a cappella is the harbinger.
Oh, it goes hard. That goes so hard.
What if this is just a sound guy fucking with everyone? Well, except what's on TV, right?
Yeah, they haven't done anything on TV about it. The announcers have not acknowledged it. This has strictly been done in live arenas and, of course, with the QR code, similar to what we've seen with NXT with Zoe Stark's return. Yeah. Now they're doing something with Bray Wyatt, similar to what AEW did with CM Punk, where they wouldn't say his name, but they kind of telegraphed. They sold out the United Center, and you kind of got the idea that it was him. It looks like they're going that way with Bray Wyatt. And I like how they're doing this, especially if the payoff is Bray Wyatt.
Maybe if we look at the history of QR codes, those aren't the most exciting payoffs that we've had.
No, it's not. And as much as I like Zoe Stark, I felt like the buildup superseded her actual return. Whereas this, if it ends up being Bray Wyatt, I think it'll live up to it and it'll pay off. But if it's not, it'll be the first black mark of the Triple H era, I think.
Yeah, well, we'll see. I think it's exciting when they do something different. This isn't like the most original way they've introduced someone they've had before where... Actually, you know what I hate that they would do during the Vince era? Something weird would happen and commentary would be like, what was that? I don't know. Anyhow, moving on. You know, they're just like, they just no-sell it completely.
Yeah, this is even better with them not acknowledging it at all. I like this better. Similar to kind of how they did the Dexter Loomis thing, to where they weren't necessarily acknowledging, but you did get moments like what you're saying, where they would be like, "Oh, that was strange." Anyway, oh, a man with a knife. Wow, that's weird. Anyway, let's move on. So they're not necessarily doing that. They're doing this apart from the television programming, and this just has Bray Wyatt's fingerprints all over it, paw prints, if you will. And I'm excited for the 923 edition of SmackDown to see where this goes next.
Baby Ice saying next month, hopefully they start playing Starships. Nothing's going to stop us now.
Yeah, you know, the greatest moment of Jefferson Airplane's career is when Jim Carrey covered them in Cable Guy, which is one of his best movies.
That was the best
another underrated movie. And he sang "Somebody to Love." I think that was the greatest moment of Jefferson Airplane's career. They had to be excited to see Jim Carrey cover them.
It's very weird that Orange Cassidy is Jefferson Starship, AEW is Jefferson Airplane. So I'm calling it right now. Mickey Thomas and Starship with We Built This City are coming to Impact Wrestling.
Oh, my God. Write it down, ladies and gentlemen. That's what's going to happen. Plans crack the code. This is what this is all building to.
Mickey Thomas still out there touring with a bunch of ringers, bunch of workers. No one from the original Jefferson Starship or Jefferson Airplane. Just Mickey Thomas playing the Food and Wine Festival and at Disney World and your local state fair.
Mickey Thomas can handle it by themselves. I would love to see that. But it looks like Bray Wyatt's coming out. Are you excited for Bray Wyatt? If it is Bray Wyatt, let's assume it's Bray Wyatt. Are you excited for this? Do you think Bray Wyatt's going to come in there and rectify the wrongs that were done? Or do you think it'll be more of the same? Because there are now stories that Alexa Bliss, if you watched Raw, it looks like she's going to change her character. There's been this story that she's not trying as hard as she used to. So it's very curious timing. And I'm not so sure about pairing them back together, but is that something you want to see?
If Bray comes back as Muscle Man Bray Wyatt, I will start watching Monday Night Raw again.
Okay, that's all you have to do to get one more viewer. And you know what? They're going to need you, Glenn, because Monday Night Raw didn't do very well. Up against 2 football games, it fell drastically, 1.593 million, if you'll remember. 3 weeks, I believe, in a row, Raw did over 2 million, and their viewership was just on fire. And we all knew this was coming with football season, but with this doubleheader, Raw really took a hit, 1.5.
And the new version of Quantum Leap debuted last night. 3.5 million rating, not even counting DVR. So I think clearly that is cutting in the WWE pop.
And I will say that is a very legitimate aspect of this, because Quantum Leap, the promotion for that was everywhere. Every time I watch any type of streaming show, I remember just kind of thinking to myself, man, they are promoting the hell out of this show.
They went hard with it.
Clearly seems like it's paying off.
I watched on the East Coast and the West Coast feed last night, and Peacock. Wow.
Is it that good?
Well, I really want to make sure it succeeds, because I want them to bring Scott Bakula back from the original series. So, it was a pilot, dude. What first episode of any great series? It's very rare that the first episode of a series is like, this is the maximum potential of what it could be. And actually, normally, if there's a pilot episode that is the maximum potential, usually it's all downhill from there.
Yeah, and the ultimate example of that for me is Cobra Kai, because the first couple of episodes of Cobra Kai for me were a tough watch. I was thinking about giving it up entirely. And then around episode 3-4, I felt like it started to hit its stride and really take off. Yeah, and I think it was decent. It's very much set in the universe. They referenced the original show a bunch. There's some crossover with the original show, not Scott Bakula from the jump, but no, I'm excited. I'm very excited for how this is going to shake out. The original Quantum Leap is one of my favorite TV series of all time. Yes. So WWE might have some tough sledding up against all this tough competition, but the good news is my fantasy football team is 2-0, ladies and gentlemen. We are dominant. I'm in a super flex. They effed around and let me get Josh Allen and Justin Herbert. So we are just lighting the world on fire. And
season's looking good.
WWE is sad. They could be happy for my fantasy football team on our way to winning our 13th fantasy football championship, ladies and gentlemen.
But it's good with Bray coming back. I don't know that Bray's going to pop a huge rating, but the thing with wrestling, and I think Triple H, if there's a thing Triple H has learned from Tony Khan, think about that statement for a second. It's that you want to constantly, almost what comes next is more important than what's actually on the air. And Vince used to know this. Think about how every pay-per-view, it was part of the reason I stopped watching wrestling after the Invasion angle, because it was never about payoff. It was all about every pay-per-view ended with what's going to happen next. Things will never be the same again. It was just constantly setting up questions that the answers to were always disappointing, but we always had new questions.
but they always string you along. That's like the Carney mentality. You're absolutely right. That's what kept Vince going, is that he said the only break he would ever take during the year is after WrestleMania. He'd be like, wow, that was a good Mania. And then he would just keep going. And so that's kind of the mentality of you just kind of keep going, keep giving them something to like. And that's something that Triple H is clearly keyed into.
Yeah. I think it will be very successful. That was the problem with NXT tonight being pre-taped, was it was, Solo Sikoa relinquishing the title. That was the big.
I hated that.
Yeah, but at least it was something. If not for that tonight, was there any reason to watch tonight? Did anything of note happen tonight?
Right. No, and if you read the spoilers, it just was exactly what it was. And I actually did kind of check out the spoilers, and I just wasn't surprised by much, except for the Solo Sikoa incident with him relinquishing, which we'll get into. But I have mixed feelings about that. I just think it kind of takes the wind out of the sails of NXT, whereas I thought they were on to something with Solo Sikoa winning, going into this new era. With him relinquishing, it kind of resets things again.
Yeah. What else is going on in the news?
Well, that's the news. We got the big Bray Wyatt. Bray Wyatt has been dominating the news with all these Easter eggs. Tony Khan did have a shot about Saudi Arabia for WWE, if you want to talk about that. But it's just, what else is he going to say? He takes some shots at the other company, and people get mad, and then we move on. I believe his term, he was talking about Northeast. He was talking about New York market. He said New York is a crown jewel of wrestling, not some Saudi Arabia pay-per-view overseas.
Yeah, I'm sure he would turn down that money.
That's what I'm saying. The more Tony Khan talks that stuff, like as AEW grows, Saudi Arabia is going to want to, if they're reaching out to UFC and WWE, AEW isn't too far behind. And when they come with that Saudi money, it's going to be very hard for Tony Khan to say no. And if he does say no, the only reason he'll have to is because he opened his big fat mouth and talked all that trash.
You know what? If there's ever a chance for an AEW versus WWE supercard, that's what it would take. It would take the Saudi prince writing a 9-figure check to each company for one night only.
That is a great point that I have not heard, because there was so much speculation on these merger rumors that we talked about last week. I've not heard that take, and I love that take. If Saudi Arabia just came through and said, I'll give you guys $100 million each to have a supercard in Saudi Arabia, they're both doing it.
Yeah, no, if the KSA, if a prince said, hey, Beyonce, I want you to play a show, and I want you to play a show with the Insane Clown Posse, and I want you to alternate songs throughout the night. Like, hey, if that check's big enough, we're going to have a once-in-a-lifetime event.
100%.
It'd
be kind of a shame, though, because in front of a Saudi crowd, like, you want to see that in front of, like, wrestling fans.
Could you imagine? Okay, Beyonce, I believe, has played Saudi Arabia before, but could you imagine ICP out there spraying Faygo, Beyonce getting doused in Faygo, as they're playing chicken hunting, and then Beyonce has to go on and play single ladies after that, slipping and sliding with Faygo all over the stage.
Does the Saudi prince at any point say whoop whoop? Yes,
and starts a family chant. Saudi prince shows up with the face paint on. And he's only booking Beyonce for one of his wives. The more I think about this, the more I like this idea.
But I love this booking. This is great booking right here.
Let's talk about NXT tonight. Oh man. Oh, this is not the usual, like, oh man, wrestling is so beat, man. So hard to watch. This booking, do they think we're dumb? It's all the same old, same old. No, it's a pre-tape show. Pre-tape show that's like a pause, a break. Tonight literally was them saying we're going to get this one in the can and show it so we can give you a better show next week.
Yes, it did feel very much like a transitional show. You talked about NXT 2.5. I thought about that a lot watching the show. This is what that kind of seemed like. It's like the transitional mix between old and new, where you're seeing that NXT logo that we saw revealed last week, that kind of black and gold and white NXT logo, but there's still the colors, they're still in the arena that they're in right now. I feel like a lot of this is going to change when they're really ready to reboot. This felt like a soft launch.
It felt like a B-sides album. And as we all know, a B-sides album, they normally have one new single and the rest is just filler. So like Solo Sikoa dropping that championship at the beginning, that was your new single. The rest, all filler. These were all cuts that didn't quite make the previous records. Steve Marcuccioli, $4.99. If it's Bray, do you want the Fiend Bray or the Fiend Bray or a new version of Bray Wyatt?
It's got to be the Fiend Bray, man. I think there's unfinished business with that Fiend Bray, whereas the old version of Bray Wyatt overstayed his welcome. Where eventually he got to a point where he was just talking in riddles and people didn't understand what his promos were about. Whereas the theme Bray Wyatt, I think there was an understanding that as talented as Bray Wyatt is, as creative as he is, it was kind of undermined by Vince McMahon's vision for the character. Whereas, you saw that feud with Randy Orton, which was just god awful. And I want to see, I'm not even saying that Triple H is going to knock this out of the park. I just want to see how good Triple H is if he's going to be able to tap into this creative wisdom of Bray Wyatt.
Yeah. So next week is taped as well, apparently.
Yes.
So there you go. Well, let's get to the real question, which is Sheed Black for $4.99. Asking what is so great about Applebee's.
I mean, we would be here for less time if I was describing what isn't great about Applebee's. What's not to love about Applebee's? Eating good in the neighborhood, Sheep Black. Come to Inglewood, and we'll show you what that means to eat good in the neighborhood, especially with all these cougars in Applebee's. Let me tell you something right now. I'm eating good in that neighborhood.
If you like overpriced drinks and the equivalent of a microwaved lean cuisine entree, but for the price of a restaurant entree, Applebee's is for you.
If you like anything pineapple flavored too. I'm talking about the cocktails they have. I don't know why. I'm talking about the drinks. I don't know why you're laughing.
So, Solo Sikoa was backstage. We saw HBK, Solo Sikoa and Carmelo Hayes in HBK's office, and Hayes just stripping Solo of the title and then telling Carmelo, you want it back, you're going to have a 4-way match at Halloween Havoc. Ladder match. 5-way ladder match. 5-way ladder match, yes.
I was very excited about the prospects of Solo Sikoa possibly being somebody who goes back and forth, being a champion who can showcase the NXT North American Championship on SmackDown, which is WWE's most viewed show. I thought there was a lot of good. Again, I was not very happy with Carmelo Hayes losing that championship, but if he's going to lose to Solo Sikoa, who's in this main event stable on SmackDown, I was completely fine with that.
Yeah.
But now them going backwards, it's almost like, why the hell did you do it in the first place?
No, it's true. And apparently everyone's saying next week is pre-taped also. So wait, they taped 6 hours of wrestling with the same crowd last week?
That must have been a drag. They were pretty hot tonight, especially, not for the whole show, but there were points, especially Andre Chase when he came in there. They were pretty hot for some points.
I mean, in terms of energy, I don't know. I mean, dude, I sat through that entire 5 hours at Access at WrestleMania that one year for NXT tapings. In terms of energy, an NXT crowd is pretty good. Whereas at WrestleMania, good Lord, I don't think I've ever gotten up and walked around as much at a show ever as in an 8-hour WrestleMania.
Where was this in San Jose, you said? I think I was there too.
No, Access. No, that was when they taped at Dallas that day.
In Texas. Okay. Yeah. I was there too. Yeah.
Yeah. Dude, I went to some dude's hotel room that I met off Craigslist to pick up his tickets because that was sold out at Access. And he was wearing a Hulkamania shirt. I decided not to have the conversation that anyone that knows me knows I was so tempted to have with this man. But I paid him $40 and got 2 tickets to Access that started at 8 a.m. or something absurd. And we made a beeline over there. You can watch, if you watch all those episodes taped at Access after Mania Dallas, I'm there rampside for much of that.
Wow. That would be funny if you had a shirt on the back that said Hulk was right.
Next week, if we have a virtual, if we have our guest co-host, we'll have to ask that guest co-host what they think about Hulk Hogan. And I
am curious to see our guest co-host thoughts on Hulk Hogan. I would love to see that.
I got to make this work. Ian G, $2. I ate Applebee's recently and the food is too salty.
Okay, you go to the Applebee's for the drinks and for the atmosphere and for the party. It's like a neighborhood atmosphere. And if you have to eat Applebee's, get the surf and turf.
The key, Ian, is that the salt is in the food and not in your game. So
absolutely. I like that, Glenn. See?
Yes. I don't even know what salt in the game actually means. I've just heard it for the better part of the last 35 years. Sheed Black, Butch. Thank you.
Hell yeah, Sheed. Now that's the type of super chat I want to see from Sheed Black.
So I was talking about this, speaking about salt in the game. On Game Boys to Men, the podcast to do with Jeff Gerstmann on his Patreon, we recorded our new episode about the Sega CD, talking about a lot of 1992 memories. And there was a question that I posed: is No Vaseline the greatest Ice Cube song of all time?
Wow, the greatest Ice Cube song of all time. It might be the greatest diss track of all time. I would put it on my short list for one of the greatest diss tracks. I'm going to have to think and go through his catalog, I don't know if it's the greatest Ice Cube song of all time. Today was
Jeff
a good day.
Gershman said really dough, and I'm like, really dough? Like really? That's do you think the best Ice Cube song of all time?
That's a good song. I don't know if it's his best. No.
Not Turn Off the Radio. Not
Turn Off the Radio is a good one.
I mean, you could pick almost a track at random off of America's Most Wanted, and you might be right in calling it, the greatest Ice Cube solo song of all time. But I think No Vaseline is the best solo song that he's done.
It's up there. I love No Vaseline, and I give it all its flowers for being like maybe the greatest diss track of all time. If you look bar for bar, he just goes hard. But it might be the best Ice Cube song. I'm not ready to commit to that. I might have to go back and look at his whole catalog and see what. Now, are we just talking about solo? You said solo Ice Cube. We're not talking about songs that he appeared. Okay. Yeah. Well, then if we're going to narrow it down, you might have a case. No Vaseline might win that.
Okay. Sheed Black pointing out that Sonic CD had a good soundtrack. So on this episode of Game Boys to Men that Jeff Gershman and I did, talk a little bit about Sonic CD and some of that, but we really dive deep on the full motion video games like Night Trap, Sewer Shark, Make My Music Video, and those notorious fiascos the Sega CD was famous for. That for like a year, everyone was like, this is the future of gaming. Spoiler alert, it wasn't.
It kind of was, because then games did go to CDs. It just Sega CD wasn't a part of that.
Yes. Oh, Baby Ice thing. Yes, you can. I think about the song. You can do it quite. Like the beat on that is phenomenal.
It's a great club banger. I will not say that is this because I don't think that's a good It's a good representation of Ice Cube, but I don't think it captures Ice Cube, like the essence of Ice Cube. I think it's pop Ice Cube. It's a great song. It gets the clubs going. I will not commit to that being the greatest Ice Cube song of all time.
This is what we were talking about on the podcast. Is in 1992, we were outraged that Mr. Ice Cube, who once said Ice Cube is not for the pop charts, followed up It Was a Good Day with Bop Gun. And we were saying, could you imagine if in 1992 someone would have said, like, and here's a clip from Are We There Yet? It like heads would have exploded.
Yeah.
Now if you told me Ice Cube's going to be a movie called Torque, I would be like, hell yeah, he probably shot that right after he shot Trespass, because I mean, Ice Cube was once like the epitome of hard.
Oh, yeah.
You
gotta pause that. But he was. No, he absolutely was. It is. And one of the greatest writers in the history of hip hop. He doesn't get enough credit for how great of a writer he was. NWA doesn't really happen without Ice Cube. I think he was.
Oh my God. Can you imagine? Like, I'm thinking about NWA after Ice Cube, and I think like people overrate those albums. Like DOC, good lyricist, but I have no desire to listen to anything after Ice Cube left from NWA.
I agree. Me too.
John Jordan, $5 petitioning for friend of the show status. Now then, Tony Twitter fingers is that dude who low-key drinks Zima yet says he's too good for Applebee.
Hey, Tony Twitter fingers is invited to Applebee's. And John Jordan, you are a friend of the show. I've talked to John Jordan on Twitter sometimes. A good dude. You have achieved friend of the show status. Congratulations.
ENG asking an important question. Wouldn't taking a girl to Applebee's be salting my own game since it means foiling romantic interactions with someone? See, I think taking someone to Applebee's on a date is kind of good because you're setting expectations and you're saying, like, don't expect too much more from me. This is about as good as it's going to get.
Yeah, and then everything else after that she'll be impressed. But Applebee's is the ultimate aphrodisiac. You take a girl to Applebee's and don't even think about it.
Baby, I sing, you will respect Save the Last Dance. There was You Can Do It. That was like I think that was like the end credits dance number. Like Julia Stiles getting down to, dude, I'm still riding high on the Step Up series. I've gone back and rewatched like the dance number. Like, I mean, not to spoil, so in Step Up 3D, they have these crazy like clothes that like start lighting up, and whenever they hit them, they change colors. And then you think like they are massacring this other dance crew, and then they bring in the Shorties crew, which are all these little kids that come in and start busting a move, and it is just like it's freaking epic. Step Up 3D, this final dance.
So 3D. Do I need 3D glasses to watch
no,
this?
It's not in 3D anymore. Like I watch it regular. It's also a really cool dance where there's like a burst pipe and they're all dancing in water and stomping and water is going everywhere. That probably looked amazing in 3D. So Check Yourself is good. You know what I don't like about Check Yourself is I like the original version with DOS effects on the Predator. I'm not a big fan of the Message remix, and all you ever hear is the Message remix, not the original.
Yeah. That's good. Check Yourself is actually, it does have a, I think Check Yourself is on the short list too. That's an interesting one.
Yes. Kill Carl Arms. Ice Cube does have some of the greatest, like, I misheard lyrics in rap. I'm not going to tell you what the actual lyric is, but I had a friend that swore he thought Al Jabiba was the name of a host of like a TV show, and Ice Cube was urging ladies to go home and watch Al Jabiba.
I mean, that does make sense, kind of, in a roundabout way.
I will say that as a white child listening to hip hop, you kind of assume sometimes there are things I don't get, but I'm just going to nod along and sort of infer based on context.
It's a different culture. Yeah.
It's a different culture. Yeah. So Al Jabiba going to make a comeback, I'm sure. Syndicated talk show. Nathan Frazier versus Axiom in the second match of their best of 3 series. Oh my God. I with bated breath on a best of 3 series, especially the score now is 1-1. Who would have thought this would have been the outcome in the second match of a best of 3 series?
I feel like this rivalry personifies where NXT is at right now. Like, it's in this middle ground. We're just going to wrap something up. People aren't too terribly excited for what's happening right now, but what's coming next is going to be much better. And this was a perfect way to start a show in kind of a lame duck period of NXT, because this does feel like a lame duck feud.
It's tough. It's tough. I mean, you could have said it was a best of 3 series and said, we're just going to skip ahead to the final match. Let's just assume these guys are 1-1 and let's skip ahead to the final match.
That's the thing about best of 3s. You know where it's going to go for those first 2, so they cancel each other out. Whereas, I mean, the best of 7, the gold standard of that for a lot of 90s wrestling fans, they remember Chris Benoit and Booker T. They had that best of 7 series, and it just made both of them really elevated in terms of being world title contender talent. We should not say his name, but ever since then, I don't feel like they've done it correctly. I feel like they just haven't been able to live up to it. I know Sheamus and Cesaro did something like that.
That was very good.
It was good, but it was not
saying they're going to end up as a tag team, just like Sheamus and Cesaro.
Oh, I could absolutely see that. And that's where it was kind of teasing when they began talking about this, is that they were going to be a tag team, because he does not know that's a kid under there.
Oh, that's right. Best in the smokers world, $5. Alfred, great minds think alike. We're the same age, have Midwestern roots, and know that older women are the best. You're the man.
Hell yeah. And he looks the smokers world. That's another thing we might have in common. So good for that. We do have great minds that think alike. Love to hear it.
There you go. Got a video of Alba Fire setting up, saying she's going to burn Mandy Rose's empire to the ground.
Is she being literal? Because that's a threat of arson. And if that stated, maybe that's how they're going to go from NXT 2.0 to NXT Black and Gold. Alba Fire is going to burn down the CWC.
Chris Brick saying that I should watch America's Best Dance Crew. I won't be disappointed. Here's what I was thinking, because my wife's out of town. I was actually thinking, because look, I would never do this when I'm around her because I can't dance, but I was tempted. I was tempted to go on YouTube and like watch some dance tutorials.
Hey, America's Best Dance Crew. I think you'd love it. Chris Bricks, tell me in the chat your favorite crew. Mine is Super Crew. More than the Jabberwockies like Super Crew.
I've seen Jabberwockies live in Las Vegas.
Oh, wow. I hear they're amazing.
It's very good. And brilliant idea with the masks, because you think you're too good for Jabberwockies? Hit the door. We got extra masks.
Isn't that what they do with the Blue Man Group? Is that like they just kind of switch them out?
Yeah, Blue Man Group's a franchise, man. Deadpool Party, speaking truth, Julia Stiles deserves an Oscar for playing Esther's mom in Orphan First Kill.
Yeah. Julia Stiles is also.
Did you watch the new Orphan yet?
I have not seen the new Orphan. Is it good?
Did you watch the original Orphan?
I saw it, but I don't remember what happened in the original Orphan.
Watch the original Orphan. Watch the original Orphan first, then go back and watch Orphan First Kill. Orphan First Kill is, for a prequel, it is phenomenal.
Wow. Okay. And this is on Hulu?
Paramount Plus.
Okay.
And what's her face? Isabel Furman is playing the same role that she played in Orphan, the character earlier, even though Isabel Furman is now like 23 years old. It's incredible. Baby I saying TKO, Turbo Kelly Ozone. Yeah. Yes. And Breaking 2 is so good. Toxic Attraction took on Ivy Nyla and Tatum Paxley from Diamond Mine.
This was fine. It's weird to see Toxic Attraction go back and forth. Yeah, and by fine, I just mean it was just there. It did nothing for me. Where Toxic Attraction, you think they're called up, you don't think they're called up. I feel like they're in a weird, and they don't even seem to be aligned with Mandy. I know they had a short interaction with Mandy, but it feels like Mandy doesn't even want anything to do with them. So it's kind of, they haven't really tied up these loose ends with Toxic Attraction. And I feel like they owe it to that group because they pretty much done this era that we're about to end with NXT 2.0 was dominated by Toxic Attraction pretty much from the beginning to the end. So they at least owe it to Toxic Attraction to have some blow off so that they can just go on their merry way.
I concur. Toxic Attraction getting that win. We had the Dyad versus Idris Enofe and Malik Blade. Were you on the edge of your seat for this?
I was not. I like Idris and Malik Blade. Sometimes they'll give them really funny stuff to do, and I think
not in a while though.
Yeah, and now they're just kind of back to being this kind of a generic tag team that is feeding these guys. I have no problem with them being more of the enhancement because they're kind of newer, and wins and losses aren't really going to matter as much here. But they are an entertaining duo. There are things that they can do with them creatively that they just kind of haven't done.
Yeah.
And the Dyad is just death. There's nothing here with this.
Like,
group.
it's like somebody said, how could we take Joe Gacy and make him worse?
Yeah, that's exactly what it is.
Like,
they're succeeding.
Yeah.
I will say this. I didn't get to say this last week. That babyface comeback he had, like, Joe Gacy can go. But let's not get it twisted. He had this great babyface comeback that just kind of, blew me away. I kind of remembered, oh, that's right. This guy can actually kind of work. But the character is just horrible. But these people went crazy for that comeback he did when he was posing as a babyface alongside Cameron Grimes.
The problem with Joe Gacy, though, is it's bad and it keeps getting worse. But you would think the law of averages would suggest that it's kind of like the Leprechaun effect. Like, first Leprechaun movie, meh. Second Leprechaun movie, dumb. We're going to take the Leprechaun to the hood. We're going to take Leprechaun to space. And you know what? Then I'm interested. Then I think you've turned a corner. So with Joe Gacy, Joe Gacy should go to the hood and space.
Please. I want him to go to the hood first, and then we can take him to space. But he needs to go to like
space after he goes to the hood.
Oh, yeah. That would be amazing. So what does he go to the hood and try to convert people? Like, does he go to a kid who's trying to sell candy bars for his basketball team and say, no, you need to be part of the Dyad. Screw these candy bars.
Okay, so I have to ask this. Like, in LA, that's everywhere. Like, you cannot go anywhere in LA without a child selling candy bars for their sports team.
Literally every time I go to Target.
But is it like legit, or is this like a magazine crew thing where you're never going to get the magazines and it's like low-key human trafficking?
I'd like to believe that once in a while it is legit, but it's really not. It's all a big hustle. You're probably never going to find out where your money's going. It's sometimes a good thing to just kind of give the money back to the community, but a lot of times it is not legit. That money's going somewhere else.
Yeah. If someone tries to sell you magazine subscriptions because they're trying to win a contest, look up Mad Cruise. That shit ain't real. Watch the movie American Honey. You'll learn all about that stuff. But buy the candy bars and support the youth.
Yeah, support those basketball teams.
Buy the $5 candy bar.
And all the things that come with the basketball team.
The Dyad got that win. Oh, Cora Jade versus Wendy Chu. This was nice.
Listen, I was impressed by Cora Jade in the ring in this match. I mean, Wendy Chu is a very good worker. Some would say a great worker, and maybe carried her to a good match, but this is a solid match. You kind of knew Wendy Chu was going to lose, and Cora Jade, I thought, look, this might have been her best match.
I like the new aggressive attitude. I think Cora has got a certain swagger she did not have as a babyface. I worry about Wendy Chu. Like, where's Tiffany Stratton?
That's a great question. It's $1 million question. I don't know if they're just holding her off for this reboot or whatnot. I think the last time we saw her was in that Battle Royal. I don't think we've seen her since.
No, wasn't it the blow off with Wendy Chu? Wasn't that?
Oh, that's right. She did have that. Yes. With the cornrows.
Yeah. Maybe she had to go into hiding based on how the cornrows were received.
Yeah. So much backlash that she's now hiding out until it blows over.
It's a society we live in, man. Do I want to live in a world where people of any background can't wear cornrows?
Yeah, seriously. We're saying Glenn can't wear cornrows. Glenn, I need you to grow your hair out and wear cornrows for by the time we get to Black History Month in February. You've got September, October, you got 5 months to grow out your hair.
If I grow out my hair, I get the big Jufro effect. It's very Sideshow Bob. It's not pretty. But Wendy Chu, I think Wendy Chu has to get called up to the main roster. I think
I think of all the women, I think she is on the short list of people who are absolutely ready for the main roster. And with that character, I think it could work. I think people would really be into it if they committed to it on a Raw or a SmackDown. This is something I think Vince would be all about. I don't know about Triple H.
Yeah. Cora Jade got that win tonight. Lash Legend came out afterwards, though, delivered a pump kick to Wendy Chu. So we're going to, I think, have a feud with them going forward.
Very interesting.
Or a match next week.
The type of talent that Lash Legend needs to be working with is a Wendy Chu, somebody who is a veteran, somebody who can, carry her to a decent match and she can learn from. Very kind of random, but it'll be interesting. I think this will be a good feud.
Carmelo Hayes came out to address the audience, interrupted by Andre Chase and Chase U. And then we had a match between Andre Chase and Trick Williams, with Chase U getting that win. What did you think of this?
Yeah, very surprising. I thought this was just going to be Andre Chase goes in there and gets washed, but maybe they're finally doing something with Chase U. Maybe they see how over he's getting with those stomps. But this was one of those points where you were talking about how these fans have to sit around for hours on end. It didn't come across that way when Andre Chase was in the ring doing his thing, because these people were really into him. And this is one of the bright spots of the show, I thought. I love Carmelo Hayes and Trick Williams. This is kind of one of those smaller things that they don't necessarily do as much in WWE, where you get upset when you lose, or you get upset when you lose a title and you're pissed off, and that becomes part of the story. We saw so many years of John Cena would make it a habit to where he would lose and just kind of blow it off. And it always undermined who won. It would always undermine the storylines. But with Carmelo Hayes, I thought him and Trick Williams did a great job of just being pissed off that they lost last week.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. And I think that Von Wagner. All right, long day, folks. Got to take care of a lot of cats with the wife out of town. Von Wagner versus Senga. This, talk about big meaty men slapping meat. And I'm surprised, like, Von Wagner looks really strong. Senga is a really big dude. I'm legitimately became a child where I was like, I'm impressed Von Wagner beat this really big monster.
Yeah, and he like deadlifted him at one point, which was very impressive because he kind of lost his footing. So he had to legitimately do like a Romanian deadlift with Senga on his back. And it was very impressive to watch. I don't know about this Von Wagner. I'm not the biggest fan of him. I don't hate him.
I mean, no one is the big fan of Von Wagner.
That's the thing.
The challenge.
It's clearly Triple H's or Shawn Michaels or whoever's in NXT, because they keep trying with this guy. And I really do like Senga. I think Senga, there's something there. I think his look is unique, especially now that he's out of that Braun Strowman gear and he's got his own thing. He's got that hairy body. I think Senga, especially his personality, and there's something to be done with Senga. I think that's where the potential is, not Von Wagner.
Tonight was the first time. I mean, because he won, I was expecting Senga to win. In my mind, Senga is money, but the fact that Braun beat him, it was impressive. Or that Von beat him, that was impressive.
It was. And Von's getting better and better in the ring, and I think he's fine in the ring. This is pro wrestling, man. We need characters.
Let's pair him up. Let's have the Von Braun connection, and they'll just have like no personality between them with two of them combined.
Von and Braun. You see that?
Von Braun.
In black and white.
Yeah. It'll all be good. But yes, as Chris Aldridge saying, the wrong guy won.
I agree.
Oro Mensah versus Grayson Waller in a qualifying match.
Ghana in the house.
Oro Mensah, who got the win.
Mensah is the real life last name of Kofi Kingston.
Really?
Yeah, and they let Mensah have it, the Ghanaian. Great to see a Ghanaian on TV. Ghana is the team I'll be rooting for when the World Cup comes along this year, because Liberia does not have one. But I thought this was a fine debut. It was very weird how this finish came about with Apollo Crews in his bloody eye. I hope that doesn't become a gimmick. It's just I'm not much of a blood guy. I'm very squeamish when it comes to stuff like that. So maybe it's just me. And I don't know if that red in his eye is real and if it's still there, but it just looked crazy.
It is icky looking. And I'm not shaming injury. I cut myself with a Flowbee the other night. So, I know the world of injuries well. You say, Glenn, how'd you cut yourself with a Flowbee? Aren't they supposed to be protected? Well, apparently not if you don't put in a guard on it and you just put it directly against your skin in your temple and it sucks in the skin. Yeah, I learned that one the hard way.
Did you have to put a Band-Aid on it? How did we?
We're about 48 hours out now. You can kind of see it, but it was pretty bloody. I mean, as we've learned in wrestling, the face and the head bleed a lot. So yeah, I was blading with a Floppy. I'll be putting the bandage back on after this just to protect it from the bacteria. But yeah, Apollo interfered, allowing Oro to get that win. One of the Creed brothers is going to face Damon Kemp in singles action for breaking up Diamond Mine. Looks like it's going to be Brutus. Braun Breaker is on commentary. And we had JD McDonough versus Tyler Bate in a number one contenders match for the NXT Championship. What did you think of this? And what did you think about JD McDonough winning to become the number one contender? And then Dragunov coming into the ring and facing off with the two men as the show went off the air.
Yeah, this was a good wrestling match. I've never questioned the abilities of Tyler Bate or JD McDonough. In fact, I happen to like Tyler Bate in terms of being a star in NXT. But there's just so little that I think can be done between JD and Braun Breaker. We saw this feud a couple months ago. It was not that good. Yeah. There was nothing to it that really grabbed me. This has been the Achilles heel of Braun Breaker's whole run, because he has yet to have a real, truly interesting opponent. And the fact that JD McDonough and even Ilya Dragunov, I mean, none of this does anything for me. Speaking of not doing anything for me, they had a vignette for, I think her name was like Sol Ruka or something like that.
Yeah.
God love her. I'm sure she's a wonderful person, but like, this is the most wooden delivery. Like, I want to see the versions that didn't make it, that they said weren't good enough to be on here, because it was almost like she was literally reading off of a piece of paper, like she was reading a hostage note. That's the delivery of this, where I thought it was like a joke, and it was a real thing that she's debuting. So, I mean, her delivery could use some work.
Yeah, well, we'll see. We'll see how it goes. But all in all, I mean, another pre-taped NXT next week. We're going to make it through. We're going to get through this transitional era in NXT.
Yeah, this is very transitional. It feels like it. Yeah, they're still in the colorful building, but they're using the old school NXT logo. And I wonder if they're going to go to Full Sail University and restart that whole thing and do the black mat and the yellow robes, because that would be something to see. I think they absolutely should do that.
Start the beef with Full Sail and Chase U, which is the better for-profit university.
Oh, I would love that. That'd be a great storyline. You could really get some mileage out of that. Maybe you'd get some admissions to Chase U if they did that.
There you go. So Alfred has to catch a flight tonight. Where are you flying?
Flying to Vegas, your neck of the woods. One of my best friends is in Vegas, and I'm gonna go and we're gonna meet up. We're gonna rage. You should come out if you can.
If it wasn't, if my booster isn't fully in effect till Friday, unfortunately.
Okay.
Because the wife's out of town. I'm in Vegas all by myself, which is crazy, right? You would think under any other circumstances, husband alone in Las Vegas for 5 days.
I mean, it's there for the taking. We can go to Applebee's.
I'd be, gonna go hang. I mean, like it's really weird, right? But I was thinking about that before. I was like, well, what would I do? I'd like probably just go play blackjack, like just have like a sad blackjack binge for 5 days.
What's the closest casino to your place?
I'm like 20 minutes. I mean, up near like Sunset Station and like what's Aliante is like 10 minutes from me. Yeah,
I see.
So it's not bad. I can make it to the strip in like 25 minutes.
Yeah.
But next time it'll be good.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I got the booster. I got the bivalent booster for the Omicron. So hopefully
I still gotta get mine.
Yeah, it was good. 10-10 would do again. We hope Issa's okay along with the rest of the island of Puerto Rico. I know they're going through some stuff right now.
But
hopefully she'll be back on Friday. Everybody, it's King Rail saying tomorrow at Palace Station, bikini tug of war. You should have King Rail while you're here, Alfred. King Rail is Vegas local. King Rail knows what's up.
Oh, King.
Yeah. Alfred said, this is nasty. I'm at Glenn Rubenstein. We'll catch you back here next time on the Wrestling Inc. podcast. Take care.